talk about Huda, we'll talk about our way. Come join us and have your say. Let's talk about our way. Remember, you are not alone. Huda is the light in your home. We'll talk about Huda, we'll talk about our way. Come join us and have your say. Let's talk about our way. Remember, you are not alone. Huda is the light in your home. Remember, you are not alone. Huda is the light in your home.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome, brothers and sisters from around the world, joining us on our live program, Viewers Pulse, and I'm the host for the evening, Junaid Dar. Dear brothers and sisters, I'd like to begin by thanking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for giving us this golden opportunity to speak about His beautiful religion and also to make mention of the blessed name of the best of mankind, and that is Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Now, my dear brothers and sisters, Viewers Pulse is a unique program. First and foremost, it's your program. We are live for the next hour. We're going to spend our time together where we're going to be looking at a number of different reports, a number of different clips that we've gathered together over the last week, looking at some of the peaks of the programs that we've been airing over the last week. Also, my dear brothers and sisters, every week we have a theme, and our theme for today's discussion, or for this week's program, is a very interesting subject, and it is the subject of wealth. You've seen the post on our Facebook page, but we'd also like for you to interact with us. Now, the topic of wealth has lots of discussion. Now, what does Islam say? What's Islam's perspective when it comes to money, when it comes to wealth? Are we as Muslims meant to go out and seek wealth and try to be as rich as we can? Or is our faith commanding us to abstain from the world, to abstain from wealth, and just to survive so that we can get to the akhirah as peaceful and with as little as possible? Those are the two dimensions of the discussion. I'd like to hear what you think. Some people will say that wealth is the mother of all evils. It is the desire for gaining property, for gaining money, for gaining gold and silver, that we start wars, that we kill one another, that we cause chaos on this earth. Do you agree with that argument? Or do we say that no, wealth has its time and has its place, has its perspective? We as Muslims are allowed to go out and earn our wealth as long as we don't transgress the bounds. So these are the questions today that I really want you to join me on the phone with and to give me your perspectives. You can join us on Facebook as well. What do you think? What's the role of wealth? Do you think we've transgressed the bounds? We are too money hungry and we've forgotten the akhirah, we've forgotten Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we are just trying to build our houses in this world and we've forgotten about the hereafter. So those are our questions, and we want you to engage with us on our discussion today. Now, my dear brothers and sisters, as I had mentioned, we are live for the next hour, and we really want you to engage with us, to communicate with us, to give us your thoughts and your ideas on, first and foremost, our reports, as you're seeing in the program, and secondly, to give us your contributions. If you have anything to add to Huda TV, then please do so. This is the best time and the best place to do so. And also, if you want to engage with us on our discussion today on the topic of wealth, then please do that also. So you're probably wondering, how can you get engaged with myself here on the program and at the same time with Huda TV? There are a number of different ways, and we want to begin with the first, most easiest and the most direct way, and that is through the telephone. Now, my dear brothers and sisters, you will see our numbers coming across the screen very shortly. There we go. And if you are calling outside of Egypt, then don't forget to use the code, which is right about there, 002. Join us in the program. You've got two numbers. Please do pick your phones up and join me on our discussion for the evening. Now, my dear brothers and sisters, if you can't get to a phone, then you can join us via email. You can always drop us any thoughts or questions or queries you have about our program on our email address, which is as follows: pulse@huda.tv. So please do send us an email, and we have a team working to respond to your emails as quick as possible. Now, the next mode of communication, my dear brothers and sisters, is through Facebook. If you go to your Facebook account and you type in Huda TV, you will see our fantastic page. And our page consists of so many different things: reminders from the Quran, the reminders from the Sunnah, and at the same time, you will see a beautiful link on our Facebook page which will take you to our one and only official Huda TV webpage. So do join us on that page, and you can see so many different things, especially the itinerary. You get to see all of our programs 7 days a week, 24 hours of every single day, so you can schedule your routine around the programs which are most suitable for yourself. So do visit our Facebook page, and please don't forget to like the page and also to introduce your friends and your families to our page, and inshallah ta'ala we can spread those likes. And don't forget to visit our official page at the same time. Now, my dear brothers and sisters, another mode of communication is through Twitter. Go to your Twitter accounts, type in Huda TV channel. You will see our page there, and you can join us on our Twitter account. And what is the unique feature of being with us on Twitter? It's because you will be connected directly to our Facebook page, where you will get to, where you're kept updated with all the new activities taking place direct onto your phones, onto whatever device you're using. So do join us on Twitter. The next mode of communication, and it's the most important, and that is through YouTube. My dear brothers and sisters, if you jump onto YouTube and you type in Huda TV, you will see our beautiful page where you can see all of our programs. You can see extracts of our programs as well, archives of previous programs, so much benefit. And the unique feature is the fact that you can see our programs just like this, Viewers Pulse, live for absolutely free by live streaming our programs by the click of a button. So please do join us on YouTube. And more importantly, don't forget to press that red button. Make sure you subscribe to our channel. Help us to grow, inshallah ta'ala, so we can produce more things and we can help you to watch those programs or those subjects which you really would like to watch. Now, my dear brothers and sisters, the next mode of communication, this is our last mode, and that is through Skype. If you go to your Skype accounts and type in Huda_TV, you will see our Skype accounts, as you can see there on your screens, and you can join us via Skype. We are usually green, so you can engage with us, have a discussion with us through typing or through voice. So please do join us on all of those different modes of communication. The goal behind all of that is for us to interact, is for us to exchange ideas, and more importantly, for us to receive your feedback, to receive your ideas, to receive your positive criticisms. As you can see, our channel, mashallah, it is improving and it is progressing in the right direction, but we need your suggestions. We need your comments to tell us what is required in order for us to suffice your needs. Now, my dear brothers and sisters, we have a number of different reports coming to you today, and some of those will be coming from our live programs, some of them will be coming from our repeated programs. Our very first report is going to be talking about wealth. But before we begin that report on wealth, I would like to remind the brothers and the sisters about the importance of this subject. Now, does Islam, does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala command us to gather wealth, or does He command us to abstain from wealth and to survive, stay alone from the world and get on with life with minimum interference? And as they say, the dunya is a test. So where do we draw that line? Now, my dear brothers and sisters, let's watch our first report. And then when we come back, hopefully we'll get to receive some of your phone calls, and maybe you can educate us on how we should interact with wealth, how we should interact in trying to make a house in this world or a house in the hereafter. Let's watch this report, and I'll see you all in a few moments.
This is the advice that was so valuable that his community gave him, but Allah sees so much value in that advice, He made it part of His Quran. He made it timeless advice. You should not be so hung up on your wealth and the things you can get with your wealth that you're constantly overly excited about the next product, about the next vacation, about the next clothes, about the next house. And if this thing is the only thing that's bringing a smile to your face, then la tafrah, inna Allah la yuhibbul fariheen. The question then is, why does Allah give us all this wealth? Actually, it is the same surah. فَمَا أُوتِيتُم مِّن شَيْءٍ فَمَتَاعُ الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا وَزِينَتُهَا. Allah says, whatever you've been given in this life, it is things to use in this life, and they are its beauty also. It's beauty as well. Meaning the things Allah gives us in this world, nice clothes, nice food, nice house, nice car, these things are also from Allah. This is also part of what Allah has offered you here. But you should use these things for a higher purpose. All of this is nice, but this is all temporary, and this is not your goal in life. Really, practically speaking, at the end of the day, between a believer and a disbeliever, they could have the same job, they could have the same amount of money, they could have the same nice car, but one of them has the right attitude and the other doesn't have the right attitude. And the right attitude is, this is not my goal. My goal is something much more. This is just a means to an end. وَمَا عِنْدَ اللَّهِ خَيْرٌ وَأَبْقَى. What Allah has is better and it lasts longer. So now every time I think about anything in dunya, when I think about house, car, money, whatever I think of, I have to compare what Allah has given me here to what Allah will give me in the akhirah, and two comparisons always come in my mind. خَيْرٌ وَأَبْقَى. Whatever Allah has is better, whatever Allah has lasts longer. Whatever Allah has is better, meaning if I have food here, Allah will give me better food in Jannah. This is awesome food. Don't get me wrong, I'm grateful for this food, but Allah has better in store. Then Allah has given me health, but this health will not last forever. This youth will not last forever. This ability even to speak for some people won't last forever. The vision you have right now, your eyesight is pretty decent, but as you get older, it's going to get weaker. It's not going to last forever. But what Allah has for you in storage, in Jannah, that lasts longer than this. So why work so hard for something temporary when you can work hard for something permanent? That's the attitude, which is why His community says, first of all, don't be deluded by wealth. Don't be overly happy and overly excited by material things. Think higher than that, set your aim higher than that. And how do you do that? وَابْتَغِي فِي مَا آتَاكَ اللَّهُ الدَّارَ الْآخِرَةِ. You see, His community is not telling him to go bankrupt or give up all of his wealth, and it's haram for him to be wealthy, even though the way he made his money, that can be questioned. What they're telling him is through whatever Allah has given you. Because Allah has given this wealth to you, you should use whatever Allah has given you to pursue the next home, the final home. You have a home here, you have wealth here, but everything you've been given, you can put it to use to build your akhirah. What we're learning here in the word ma, وَابْتَغِي فِي مَا آتَاكَ اللَّهُ, as opposed to saying فِي الَّذِي آتَاكَ اللَّهُ. The word ma has ibham. What they say is ambiguity and tawassu'. It's open. What that suggests is whatever Allah has given you. For some of you, Allah has given high intelligence. For some of you, you're amazing programmers. For some of you, Allah has given you very good business sense. For some of you, Allah has given great physical ability. Allah has given you different things. Whatever Allah has given you, first you do an audit of what Allah has given you. Then you figure out, how do I give this to Allah? How do I use what I have to build my akhirah? How do I use this talent that I have to do something good that can build my akhirah? In other words, you're not just thinking of your talents for how to make money for yourself, how to benefit yourself. You're constantly thinking about what abilities Allah has given you and how those abilities can be used to do something good for someone else, for Allah's deen, for another human being, for your neighbor, for somebody else. And when you start thinking like this, you're building the akhirah. When you're only thinking about yourself, this is what they program us to do, by the way, in modern education. Why do you go to school? Because you're going to get a job. So which major are you going to do? The major that's going to get you, first of all, you have a good talent in that major, and two, you can find a good job in that major. Why do you want a good job in that major? So you can make more money. At the end of the day, everything is about you. That's why you're pursuing this job. That's why you're pursuing this career. It's not about what you can do for others. Allah is saying the rizq for you will come, and more of it will come if your concern is not yourself, your concern is actually others. You want to do something more, greater than yourself. This attitude of, this is against selfishness itself. Allah is not against having wealth. But Allah is subhanahu wa ta'ala in this ayah remarkably against wealth that is just about you. Your entire goals and aspirations are limited to yourself. How selfish and pathetic a way to live. You cannot call yourself a member of a community if you don't care about anybody beyond yourself, practically. In your head you care, that doesn't mean anything. But what have you actually done? What have I actually done? This is وَابْتَغِي فِي مَا آتَاكَ اللَّهُ الدَّارَ الْآخِرَةِ. But then there's an extreme. The extreme is you're so concerned about everyone else, you forget about yourself. You're so busy doing things for the community, for others, for the Muslims, in the work of da'wah, in the work of whatever else, running the school, Sunday school, volunteering in every single program, etc., etc. And you forget about your own life. You're not taking care of your own health. You're not taking care of your family. The wife never sees you. The kids never see you. Your job, you're failing at your job, the business is falling apart, everything's crashing down because you're saying, no, I just care about deen. Look at the balance in the Quran. وَلَا تَنْسَ نَصِيبَكَ مِنَ الدُّنْيَا. Don't forget your portion in dunya. In this worldly life, you also have a portion. The portion could be two things. It could be the things you should enjoy in life. You have, إِنَّ لِنَفْسِكَ عَلَيْكَ حَقًّا. You have rights over yourself too. You have, yourself has rights over you. You should take care of your physical body. You should eat right. You should sleep at the right time. You should spend time with your children. You should enjoy yourself in life. That's all fine. There's nothing wrong with that. On the other side, nasib also includes responsibilities. So on the one hand, things you can enjoy, but also responsibilities. In other words, you get so concerned about changing the world, but you're not taking care of your own personal responsibilities. You have responsibilities that you and I have to take care of. وَلَا تَنْسَ نَصِيبَكَ مِنَ الدُّنْيَا. Now if you can balance all of these things, meaning on the one hand, you are pursuing the afterlife, ad-dar al-akhirah, by thinking beyond yourself. At the same time, you're not forgetting about yourself. You're also taking care of your personal, your family responsibilities, etc. And your physical responsibility, for physical rights also. Now, above and beyond that, what is the road open for? وَأَحْسِن كَمَا أَحْسَنَ اللَّهُ إِلَيْكَ. It's remarkable. Allah says, and excel the way Allah excelled towards you. You know, another rough translation is do good or do beautiful work, as Allah beautified or did such a beautiful job towards you. In other words, the way Allah made you is ihsan from Allah. أَحْسَنَ اللَّهُ إِلَيْكَ. Could be Allah has done good to you, or the way Allah has made you, like He says, لَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي أَحْسَنِ تَقْوِيمٍ. We created the human being in the best possible way. Allah Azza wa Jal, or best possible form, Allah Azza wa Jal is informing us in this ayah that the way you've been made, the aptitude, the skill set that you have, the talent that you have, the opportunity that you have, the job that you have, all of it is actually a gift from Allah, and Allah wants to see how you can use what you have been given. Because every one of us has been given something very individual, very unique. How do you turn that into excellence? How do you respond to Allah's favor to you? By going and doing excellent towards others. Allah did excellent towards you. How do you turn that and do excellent towards others? وَأَحْسِن كَمَا أَحْسَنَ اللَّهُ إِلَيْكَ. Ihsan first and foremost is to Allah. But once ihsan is to Allah, it becomes to everything else. Everything else we do has ihsan in it. When you drive the best possible way. When you study hard. When you play hard. Everything you do, you try to do the best you possibly can.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My brothers and my sisters, after watching that very short report talking about wealth, what a beautiful reminder, looking at it from so many different perspectives, so many different angles. Now my question to you is, what do you think? What is the reality of wealth? Do you find that most people are not balanced and they have the love and the desire for this world and for wealth, and they've forgotten Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And at the same time, do you think that the people have become more religious outwardly and hence are not working or are not trying to attain the wealth that they possibly could do? So do join us in our discussion for today and share with us your thoughts, share with us your ideas. I'll give you some of my ideas before we get a phone call or before we move over to our next report. And that is the fact that wealth, yes, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does make mention of it inside of the Quran as being your enemy. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that your wealth and your children are a fitna, or a trial, tribulation for you. And yes, of course, on the Day of Judgment, we will stand in front of Allah and we will give accountability for our wealth. So from one perspective, one could look at it as a negative. But at the same time, if you look at it from the other side, the fact that wealth is something positive, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives you wealth in order for you to do good with that. How would you give sadaqah, charity, if you didn't have wealth? How would you give your annual zakat, which is purification of your soul, if you didn't have wealth? More importantly, how would you make hajj, to visit the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that obligation that's upon all of us? How would we do that if we didn't have wealth? So these are the questions. There must be a middle ground. There must be something that we can work to get that balance right. And we all, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the Quran, that mankind has been created in such a way that he does love wealth. But at the same time, my brothers and sisters, you know, unfortunately we do find that our desire to attain wealth and power has led mankind to commit the greatest of atrocities, and those are the wars that are taking place around the world, as we can see today. At the same time, the killings and taking of other people's resources, all that for the sake of wealth. What does Islam say about this topic? What's Islam's perspective of gaining halal wealth, and what can we do in order that we don't attain wealth which is haram? Now, my dear brothers and sisters, we have an upcoming report, and this is titled Quran in Depth. Let's watch this first report, and this is coming from Sheikh Ibrahim Zidan, his beautiful tafsir on the Quran. Let's watch this, and then when we come back, hopefully we'll get some calls, and I'll read some of your messages as well on Facebook.
But then after that it says وَلَا يَجْرِمَنَّكُمْ شَنَآنُ قَوْمٍ أَنْ صَدُّوكُمْ عَنِ الْمَسْجِدِ الْحَرَامِ أَنْ تَعْتَدُوا وَلَا يَجْرِمَنَّكُمْ شَنَآنُ قَوْمٍ. That means do not let the hatred, and shana'an means hatred, do not let the hatred of some people, those who prevented you from going to Al-Masjid Al-Haram, referring to the disbelievers, the people of Quraysh, when they stopped the Prophet ﷺ and his companions from going to Mecca. Do not make that hatred that you have inside of you towards them because they prevented you from worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and going for Mecca when they have no rights to Mecca whatsoever because they are disbelievers, and Mecca is the most holiest place on earth, has in it the Kaaba that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered Ibrahim alayhi salam to build. So the believers, they have rights to it more than anyone else, and the disbelievers, they had control over it and they prevented the believers from going. So you can see how would be the hearts of the believers in that context, in that state. And that's why the hadith of Sulh al-Hudaybiyah is a beautiful hadith to show how the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, it was very tough on them, very difficult on them, to the extent of which that Umar radiallahu anhu, he went to the Prophet ﷺ when he get to see these conditions of the Treaty of Al-Hudaybiyah, that they would return back to Medina, no Umrah for them. And to the extent of which that if a believer comes from Mecca and he embraces Islam, then the Muslims are to return that believer to the disbelievers. And on the other side, if a believer or a disbeliever comes to the disbelievers, if a Muslim, for example, renegated and go to the disbelievers, then they are not to return him. So they saw that this is something that is so unjust to the Muslims. But the Prophet ﷺ, when Umar radiallahu anhu went to him, he said, why should we accept ad-daniyya, or why should we accept the humiliation of our religion? Aren't we on the truth? Why should we compromise the truth that we have? And the Prophet ﷺ, he was aided by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is revelation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because of the goodness that comes as a result of this. And when the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, they got to understand that, they submitted themselves to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to the orders of Allah. So when the situation was like this, and disbelievers, they wanted to go to make Umrah, and they had to pass by Al-Medina, and the companions could have stopped them easily. Right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed the verse, وَلَا يَجْرِمَنَّكُمْ شَنَآنُ قَوْمٍ. Do not make the hatred that you would have towards your enemies make you transgress the limits. Such a beautiful principle to the Muslims. Where is that in the world today? Right? And when people claim false claims against the religion of Islam, this religion of Islam came from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The religion of Allah would never ever spread or claim injustices whatsoever to be established on the face of earth. Human beings, they do wrong, but the religion of Islam, the wahyu from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the actions of the Prophet ﷺ was full of mercy, full of justice. So وَلَا يَجْرِمَنَّكُمْ شَنَآنُ قَوْمٍ أَنْ صَدُّوكُمْ عَنِ الْمَسْجِدِ الْحَرَامِ أَنْ تَعْتَدُوا. Do not transgress, even though they transgressed, even though they are disbelievers, and they broke the covenant of Allah, and they prevented you from going further. Still do not transgress, do not oppose injustice with another injustice.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back, brothers and sisters, after watching that short report from our program Quran in Depth, presented by our Sheikh Ibrahim Zidan. It's a very informative program talking about, the Sheikh takes a little part of the Quran, a few verses, and explains them in great depth, as you have just seen in that report. My dear brothers and sisters, you see the numbers there in front of you. Please pick up your phones and join me in the studio with your comments, with your queries, especially about our topic of wealth. What's your perspective on that at the same time? Now, my dear brothers and sisters, when we look at that report that we've just seen, where the Sheikh was talking about injustice and talking about justice, it's so important for us as Muslims to understand that when you look at the Quran, when you look at the Sunnah, when you look at the Sharia, the system of Islam, you'll find that it's all based on that one principle, and that is the principle of justice. Justice a person must do with him and his Lord. He must obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the manner that Allah wants you to worship Him. At the same time, justice must be obtained between fellow mankind, be they Muslim or be they non-Muslim, but justice is the pinnacle of all of our matters. We do not in any way, shape or form encourage injustice. Even if you are the powerful one and your subjects are weaker than you, we do not inform any form of injustice. So much so, just like in the report, that an Islamic principle that if you have the possibility of doing a good or you have the possibility of removing a harm, which one of those would you give precedence to? Islam teaches us that we must stop the harm before doing the good, and that is why to establish justice. My dear brothers and sisters, let's move over to our next report, and this is coming to us from a new program titled Embracing the Quran. Let's watch this together, and then when we come back, we'll get some comments and hopefully get some phone calls as well.
And there's a difference between the word Qur'an, which is a recital, and between the word kalam, Allah, kalamullah. Sometimes we say speech of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because the word kalamullah, the speech of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it is more general. Sometimes it can refer to the book of Allah, the Qur'an specifically. Sometimes it can be referring to other books of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as well. Similarly, there is a difference between the word Qur'an and there's a difference between the word Kitabullah azza wa jal as well. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given the name Qur'an specifically to the book that He gave to Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. However, the word Kitab had been given to other books as well. Because any book that was delivered by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to humanity, it eventually became a binded text, or it came into scrolls or so on and so forth, right? Or tablets, etc. So it would then be called a maktub or a kitab from that angle, something that has been written down. However, the word Qur'an is particular to none other than the book of Allah, the Qur'an. The second name of the Qur'an, which is extremely popular as well. In the Qur'an, it's recurring many, many times, is none other than the name or the title that we were just discussing, and that is the Kitab. So Al-Kitab is amongst the names of the book of Allah, the Qur'an. And this particular title, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives it to the Qur'an for a reason. As Az-Zarkashi and As-Suyuti, and I quote Az-Zarkashi and As-Suyuti, why? Because Zarkashi and Suyuti are some of the most greatest scholars who'd written on the subject of Ulum al-Qur'an, right? Az-Zarkashi in his book Al-Burhan fi Ulum al-Qur'an, and later on As-Suyuti in his book Al-Itqan fi Ulum al-Qur'an, At-Tahbir as well, and a few other books that he wrote on the subject of Ulum al-Qur'an. It is also said that Suyuti took a lot of his knowledge from Zarkashi's works. So they both explain that the word Kitab, it is known as, the Qur'an is known as Kitab. Why? Because the word Kataba, it means to gather things. Okay? Kataba means to dhamma, yadummu, or jama'a yajma'u, to gather things together and to place things together. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala very uniquely takes a multitude of different topics, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes these sometimes extremely different topics and He places them together in a very, very unique way. At a moment's difference, you'll be reading about a qasas, about a story, a qissa. And at a moment later, you'll be reading a legal law that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is revealing. Just another moment later, there will be something related to history. Another moment later, there will be something related to aqeedah and the belief system that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed within the Qur'an for the believers, right? And for mankind at large. So all of these things, they're so separate, but yet they're so united and so uniquely so. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala calls the Qur'an the Kitab from that angle because it gathers all of these things together so uniquely. And the thing that is really unique to know over here is that the word Kitab and the word Qur'an are two names that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave to the Qur'an which hint towards something, right? And this hint is, a very, very powerful hint. And that is that Allah wants us to preserve the book of Allah in both recital, and Allah wants us to preserve the book of Allah also in writing as well. So there's a preservation that occurs in writing, and then there's a preservation that occurs in also recital form as well.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back, dear brothers and sisters, after watching that short report from our brand new program titled Embracing the Quran. And that particular report was talking about the subject of the Quran itself. Brothers and sisters, you can watch this program every Sundays and Wednesdays at 8:30 p.m. That's Mecca time, so you can watch 2 days of the week, Sundays and Wednesdays, where you get an insight into the makeup of the Quran. How was it brought to us? What are the stages it went through? So do join us on that program. And as you know, the Prophet ﷺ said, the best of you are those who learn and teach the Holy Quran. So do watch that program. Furthermore, my dear brothers and sisters, don't forget that the Quran is the divine miracle of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the biggest miracle that was given to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And it's also very important for us to establish that relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How are we going to do that? Yes, through our prayers, of course, but at the same time, by reading the speech of Allah. That is what will connect our hearts to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we must increase our knowledge of the Quran, and we must read and recite the Quran on a regular basis. If we are not doing so, we ask Allah to open our hearts, to open our minds, and give us the tawfiq, the ability to read the book of Allah and to understand the book of Allah as well. Now, my dear brothers and sisters, we have an upcoming report on our program, our live program, Huda Tonight. But before we move over to that report, I'd like to remind all the brothers and the sisters as well of our discussion for today. We are talking about wealth, and we'd like to hear what you think on the subject of wealth. Is wealth one of the weapons of the devil, of shaitan, making us do all kinds of evil things? Or is it a tool from amongst the tools of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for us to gain more rewards? Now, before we move over to a very short break, I'd like to remind you of one or two comments we have on our Facebook page. We have a first one coming from Sister Sally Ahmed, and she writes on the topic of wealth, one must always keep in mind before earning any wealth or before spending it on the Day of Judgment, Allah will ask him about, number one, how he acquired his wealth, whether it was halal or haram. Number two, how it was spent, wastefully or through haram means. So mashallah, Sister Sally Ahmed brings forward two very beautiful points. The first is, number one, how did you earn your money? And everyone needs to ask that question. Secondly, Allah is going to ask you, where did you spend your money? Did you spend it on cigarettes? Did you spend it on alcohol? Did you spend it on partying? Where did you spend your money? My dear brothers and sisters, we will take a short break now, and then when we come back, we'll continue with our reports and hopefully welcome some of your phone calls at the same time. So I'll see you after this break.
يتدبرون القرآن.
One day the Prophet ﷺ came out to the companions radiallahu anhum, and he said to them, don't you bear witness that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the only one worthy of worship and he has no partners? Don't you bear witness that I am the messenger of Allah? Don't you bear witness that the Quran is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? So the companions radiallahu anhum, they said, yes, O Prophet of Allah. Then the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, فَأَبْشِرُوا, have the glad tidings, the great news as a result of this. Because the Quran has two ends to it. One end with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and one end in your hands. Then he said to them alayhi salatu wasalam, فَتَمَسَّكُوا بِهِ, hold fast to it, because you would never be led astray, and you would never be perished if you're holding fast to the book of Allah. Because of that, join us every week in Quran in depth, where we recite and reflect and ponder over the verses of the Quran. We go in depth into the verses following the ways of the Prophet ﷺ and the companions radiallahu anhum, when they used to take the verses, one set of verses after another. They would recite it, they would reflect upon the meanings of it, and they would act according to it, and then they would go to the next set of verses. Join us every week in Quran in Depth so that we would recite and reflect and learn more about the Book of Allah. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless our life and to make us among those who follow the Quran and the way of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
That group of category is one of these 7 people who will be under the shade when there is no shade but Allah's shade on the Day of Judgment.
Scholars of Arabic language explain the meaning of the word haya. They said it's the fear of something that's shameful.
At the same time you try to solve your problems, then you will see the results. And the advantage is sticking to the sunnah. When you stick to the sunnah, that's when you see the advantage. But could you elaborate more? What do you mean, sticking to the sunnah?
They commit a lot of major sins, because the problem is that they try to convince you by saying Wallahi is the best, Wallahi it is the best, you won't find anything like it, So you're going from a sin to another sin, to a greater sin.
Man, it's been over 1 hour, I'm waiting for you.
Okay, bro, it's not a big deal.
At least you should have called.
Oh, not again. Don't get too serious.
عباد الرحمن الذين يمشون على الأرض هونا وإذا خاطبهم الجاهلون قالوا سلاما.
So let's get inspired, let's get motivated to worship Allah in the best way. Let's get motivated not only to worship Allah in the best way, but to race to do good deeds. Join us in this program, Islamic Motivation, by your brother, Rayyan Arab, exclusively on Huda TV.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back, dear brothers and sisters, after joining us from a very short report here on our program, Viewers Pulse. Now, my dear brothers and sisters, we've had a look at a number of different reports from our programs over the last week. And we're also discussing our topic for the day, which is wealth. Now, I'm very interested to hear your opinions from around the world. What do you think of this subject? Do you think that wealth is inherently evil and it leads to lots of other types of evil, such as wars, such as catastrophes, such as theft? Or do you think it's a blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and we should chase it to the best of our abilities? Now, the sword has 2 sides, and you can give us your views on which side you would agree with. Now, at the same time, it's interesting to note how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us that in the Holy Quran, that shaitan, he promises people with poverty and with evil. How, when we see that comparison of how shaitan promises people with poverty, now why would he promise people with poverty? What's the danger of poverty? Not just that, but there is a wisdom as well that Umar, the second caliph of Islam, was reported to have said that if poverty was a person, a being, then I certainly would have killed it. What does that mean? And what about the famous statement that poverty is what leads people to kufr, to disbelief? So you can see here statements all talking about the concept of poverty and how it's all in a negative context. Of course, my dear brothers and sisters, when a person is living in poverty, is poor, has needs, and is not able to fulfill his needs, then he may, because of the weakness of the human nature or the whispering of shaitan, he may then resort to doing things which are haram. He may resort to doing or trading in things which are not permissible in Islam, or he may think of doing things which are also haram as well, just to save himself or just to get him out of that situation. So we can see how poverty is a negative trait. Let's look at the opposite side, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about wealth, how it's a praiseworthy thing, how a person who has wealth can give zakat, which is for the benefit of society at large. How else? Allah tells us that spend your wealth in a good way. And that means on what? On your parents, on your family, on your children, on your wife, and also to look after the orphans. So you can see that there are both pros and cons. We've got a beautiful report which is titled The Meaning of Blessed Wealth. Let's have a watch this report, and then we can truly contextualize or understand how Islam views wealth.
This right here is the summary of the concept of barakah in Islam. Let me translate this for you. Wabarik, and oh Allah, put blessing, put huge, unbelievable, never-ending blessings. Li, for me, fima, in that which, a'ataita, you have already given. That's the past tense. It's the past tense, a'ataita, meaning what you have already given. I'm not asking for more, Allah. What I'm asking for is that what you have given me is more than enough. It suffices. What I already have is more than enough. I'm just now asking you, Ya Allah, to inject the element of barakah and blessing into that which you have already given me. That is the concept of barakah. Barakah is not more. Barakah is not about more. Barakah is about the ability to do more with less. Barakah has nothing to do with quantity. It has everything to do with quality. The quality of what you have. I don't need more, Ya Allah. I just need blessing on what I have. The ability to do more with less. And this is something very interesting, very profound. You know, more and less, and blessed and not blessed, and quantity versus quality. And if you really get to thinking, if you do some deep soul searching, it'll hit you like a punch. It'll really knock the wind out of you. Because you read a narration about the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You know, the day that he passed away, there were a couple of mats. There was 1 or 2 jugs. There was a mule tied outside the house. There was a sword, there was a shield, and a couple of pairs of clothes. That was the sole possession of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the greatest human being to ever walk the face of this earth. That's all he had. And he had 9 homes, which is another topic for another day. But just to put things into perspective, you got to chew on that for a second. Today we got 1 home, 5 people within the home, everybody's got a job, everybody's working, and we're still in debt. Something's wrong, something's missing. And this is where I want to get down to the core of the issue. I'm just going to lay it down. And I'm going to apologize before I lay it down that if I do offend anyone, or if I cross any lines, just please forgive me. Meet me in the bazaar, I'll buy you a hot dog. A halal hot dog, all right? Right? So just come to the bazaar, I'll feed you a hot dog, all right? Don't be mad at me. So I'm just going to say it like it is. We have a lot of discourse, we have a lot of conversation, we have a lot of discussion in the Muslim community today about Sharia compliant financing, halal this, Sharia compliant that. And I'm not criticizing, the people that are providing these services. They are very good, beneficial services for those people that need them. But I am keeping it real with y'all for a minute. We are obsessed with the conversation about how can I take something that I don't need, I have no reason to have, there's no explanation for me having it, and find a way to somehow make me feel better about having it. We are obsessed with this conversation in the Muslim community. You want to know what Sharia compliance is? You want to know what halal is? You want to know what the Islamic financing, banking, financial, monetary system is? If you can't afford it, don't buy it. That's Islam. That's Sharia compliance. If you never buy anything you don't need, you are living a Sharia compliant lifestyle. That's as simple as it is, and I know it sounds oversimplified, but it's really not. Wallahi, it's not. We gotta understand this. Let me explain something to y'all. In some places, for some people, there is even some legitimacy to a conversation about needing to buy a home, even though I personally don't agree with it, but to each his own. Maybe I don't live in your shoes, I don't know your circumstances. I'll tell you, by the way, we talk about, oh, but we have to have a home, we have to live somewhere, I have to raise my family. I lived my entire life in an apartment complex. I lived my entire life in an apartment, and I feel like I turned out okay. You understand? I'm trying to be real with y'all for a minute. You can drive a used beat up old car. I talked about the car I drove last year. I talked about it over here. First car I ever drove, the doors had different colors. And you know what I did when I graduated past that car, when I could actually afford to buy a nicer car? We had a simple rule: if we don't got cash in the home, we don't buy it. If you ain't got cash, you don't buy it. I know that sounds oversimplified to some people, but that's how you live your life. That's how you live a responsible life. So even when I bought another car with cash, mind you, that other old car with the different colored doors, I didn't sell it. You know why? Because I had a little brother. It was too good of an opportunity to pass up. And I made him drive it until he drove the wheels off of it. I actually had to pay somebody to take that thing out of my driveway. But that's just how it works. If you can't afford it, you don't buy it. It's a very, very simple, straightforward philosophy.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back, dear brothers and sisters, after watching that short report where we got a beautiful reminder about not buying what we do not need. Not just that, but the dangers of falling into debt. Now, my dear brothers and sisters, the world today is suffering from the system of capitalism and the system of giving one another debts. Not just individuals, but even states, countries are in debt to the World Bank or to other institutions, and they are suffering themselves. And the interest that's put on those loans is really the cherry on the cake, which is really killing or destroying the people. How is it that a person who takes a small amount of loan must pay double or triple or quadruple the amount back in order to get back to zero so he can move forward? But this is the reality of many people, the reality of many countries. And the Islamic principle, as you saw from the Sheikh there, was telling us not for us to spend the money that we do not have. But my dear brothers and sisters, we have to look at the other side. We do have the dangers of debt, and we do have the massive dangers of interest-based systems where we are constantly in a trap of paying back and then more, and the circle just gets bigger and bigger. But there is the other side as well, and that is the side of gaining wealth and its benefits, especially when we're looking at the topic of zakat. I will talk about the topic of zakat in just a few moments, but before we do that, let's move over to our next report, which is titled Correct Your Recitation. Let's listen to the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Let's contemplate, let's enjoy the beautiful recitation, and then when we come back, we'll conclude with our program.
Go ahead, Abdul Rahman.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم ولئن سألتهم من خلق السماوات والأرض ليقولن خلقهن العزيز العليم الذي جعل لكم الأرض مهدا وجعل لكم فيها سبلا لعلكم تهتدون والذي نزل من السماء ماء بقدر فأنشرنا به بلدة ميتا كذلك تخرجون والذي خلق الأزواج كلها وجعل لكم من الفلك والأنعام ما تركبون لتستووا على ظهوره ثم تذكروا نعمة ربكم إذا استويتم عليه وتقولوا سبحان الذي سخر لنا هذا وما كنا له مقرنين وإنا إلى ربنا لمنقلبون.
ما شاء الله, beautiful.
وجعلوا له من عباده جزءا إن الإنسان لكفور مبين أم اتخذ مما يخلق بنات وأصفاكم بالبنين وإذا بشر أحدهم بما ضرب للرحمن مثلا ظل وجهه مسودا وهو كظيم أومن ينشأ في الحلية وهو في الخصام غير مبين وجعلوا الملائكة الذين هم عباد الرحمن إناثا أشهدوا خلقهم ستكتب شهادتهم ويسألون.
ما شاء الله, very beautiful.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Brothers and sisters, welcome back. After listening to the most beautiful recitation of the Holy Quran, how beautiful it is to always conclude our program with the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. My dear brothers and sisters, we put the topic out there for today, and that was a discussion of wealth. And we asked you, what do you think of wealth? Is it something positive? Is it negative? What does Islam say? How do we balance between the dunya and the hereafter? Now, I've got some comments I'd like to read to you before we conclude. We have Brother Muhammad, and he says, we should always remember to spend our wealth in the ways of Allah and cleanse our wealth by giving out zakat. Very nice. We have Brother Hafiz Lawal Abdul Kenya, and he says, MashaAllah, how should we make use of our wealth in an Islamic way? And Ahmad Azza says, it's a really good topic to make the people be aware how to gain and distribute their wealth. My dear brothers and sisters, I'd like to conclude on the important point of zakat. It's one that people underestimate and don't truly understand the importance or the severity of it. We are encouraged and we are obliged to give our zakat to the needy, to those who are in need. For those even in debt, like we said, they are deserved of our zakat. The Prophet ﷺ, when he made that night journey, Isra wal Miraj, he saw in the hellfire a people that their necks were surrounded with a serpent, with a poisonous serpent, a snake, and this snake would continuously bite one side of the face, then go to the other side and bite the other side of the face. And then the Prophet ﷺ asked, what is this why is this happening to this person? What is this snake? And the respondent said, this is the wealth of a person. The snake is the wealth of a person, and that person did not pay his zakat. So my dear brothers and sisters, let's remember that we must pay our zakat annually, and we must give our rights to those who are worthy of our zakat. My dear brothers and sisters, I'd like to thank you all for tuning in, and it's been a beautiful program. We will see you next week on our program Viewers Pulse. So until then, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
We'll talk about Huda, we'll talk about our way. Come join us and have your say. Let's talk about our way. Remember, you are not alone. Huda is the light in your home. We'll talk about Huda, we'll talk about our way. Come join us and have your say. Let's talk about our way. Remember, you are not alone. Huda is the light in your home. Remember, you are not alone.